decided to proceed, extending his arm towards the statue to discover his task. A flash of lightning filled the room, a sign that the statue was evaluating his eligibility. Once it confirmed he met the prerequisites, various transition tasks appeared before him, each with its own set of challenges and rewards. The 1-star transition task was straightforward, requiring him to defeat 10 level 20 ordinary sharp-toothed boars. Success would grant him the opportunity to choose between becoming a charge warrior or a defense warrior. Progressing to the 2-star task, the difficulty slightly increased, maintaining similar objectives, but with the added reward of a common-grade first-tier warrior skillbook. The complexity further escalated with the 3-star task, which also promised a superior-grade first-tier warrior skillbook, enriching Su Yang's arsenal. The 4-star task upped the ante, challenging him to undertake more daunting feats, but offering the prospect of transitioning into a bloodthirsty warlord, accompanied by a fine-grade first-tier warrior skillbook. But the most notable of all is that there is option beyond what he was initially informed of. A daunting 5-star transition task. This task stood out with its unique, ominous background color, and looking at the information closely, it was indeed on a whole another level. It required him to venture into the perilous Cold Moon Forest, where he need to kill 100 level 20 ordinary gray wolves, 10 level 20 elite savage wolves, and 1 level 20 boss-grade gray wolf. Furthermore, he was restricted from using any equipment or items obtained through gifts or trades, adding to the challenge's intensity. This is beyond overkill, but its rewards justified it, promising a special transition to the Path Demon Warrior, an additional 100 points of spirit attribute, an epic-grade first-tier Demon Warrior special skill, and the privilege of enjoying certain exclusive temple benefits. This revelation came as a shock to him, especially since he was initially informed that only 4-star tasks were available, and so he quickly turned around and confronted the nun about it. The nun promptly apologized for the oversight, explaining that the sheer difficulty of the 5-star task was the reason for it hadn't been mentioned. It was so difficult that not a single person in the Hua Kingdom has accepted this task for many years. Furthermore, with the advent of the transition era, the strength of each country's upper limit is determined by the transitioners. And so rather than letting potential professionals remain stuck at level 20 forever due to a wrong choice, both the country and the temple advise against attempting the 5-star task in the hopes of cultivating more high-level professionals. Su Yang grasped the rationale behind this guidance. The 5-star task presented an extreme challenge. It requires him to take down a boss-level monster without any assistance or the use of equipment received as gifts or trades. Such daunting requirements explain why many opt to steer clear of this path. But still, the allure of gaining 100 spirit attribute points and the opportunity to transition into a demon warrior piqued Su Yang's interest, not to mention the mysterious temple privileges that accompanied the task. These factors solidified his decision to pursue this rigorous path. Meanwhile, the nun really tried her best to convince Su Yang to take the 3-star task. Unfortunately for her, he already made up his mind, and so Su Yang just thanked her for the advice, which made her happy. But even before she could finish her response, when the system chimed in, confirming Su Yang's acceptance of the 5-star challenge, her shock was palpable, her advice eclipsed by his audacity. And all she could do now is ask why the hell he would do such a thing. And Su Yang just confidently replied that it was all on his feelings. He felt that the 5-star task was more suitable for him, and all she could think is, what the fuck? But before she could say anything more, Su Yang assured her that she doesn't need to worry about him failing, because he will definitely complete the task, and they should ready the temple since he is very curious about what the temple's privilege hold. After that, he just walked away like a Chad and fade away from view. The nun, who was paralyzed by disbelief, soon snapped back to reality in panic, and then shouted at one of her co-workers, instructing them to report to the high priest that someone was foolish enough to dare accept a 5-star task. Upon his arrival at the transmission center, Su Yang was met with an unusual scene. A multitude of hunters idly gathered, not out of choice but due to an unexpected energy fluctuation disrupting the portal's operation. This delay, a rare inconvenience at the center, had caught everyone off guard, including Su Yang. However, Su Yang, unlike many others, was not particularly perturbed by the holdup. He had no immediate rush to begin his journey to the Cold Moon Jungle, and decided to use the unexpected pause to better plan his trip. But not many shared his opinion. Among those affected by the delay was a city girl named Shu Yan, and she stood out from the crowd. And she kinda bad, though, I'ma come clean. But I digress. Her distinct displeasure was noticeable. Coming from a large, bustling city, she was unaccustomed to and unprepared for the inefficiencies and problems of smaller towns. Her disappointment was compounded by the unwanted attention from local men, prompting her to caution her sister, Shuqian, to stay close and avoid getting separated in the crowded space. Shukin, understanding her sister's concern, complied, but her attention soon shifted when she spotted a familiar figure among the crowd. It was Su-yang, calmly waiting in line for the portal, a sight that unexpectedly warmed her heart and brought a blush to her cheeks. But this moment of recognition did not go unnoticed by Shu-yan. She sensed her sister's sudden interest, and so she quickly inquired about the focus of her gaze, which flustered Zukian immediately. But still, she tries her best to downplay her reaction by explaining that Su-yang was simply a classmate, who had also changed professions the day before. But Shu-yan just found this odd because Su-yang is currently lining up for a portal leading to the notoriously dangerous Cold Moon Jungle, a destination ill-suited for novices. Concerned that Su-yang might be unaware of the risks, Shukin felt compelled to warn him against proceeding without adequate preparation. However, before they could act on their intentions, the portal's operations unexpectedly resumed, and Su-yang was swiftly transported to his destination, leaving Zukian in a state of shock and worry for his safety. Unbeknownst to her, Su-yang stepped into the Cold Moon Jungle with confidence, and therefore quickly noticed the absence of other hunters. This solitude in such a dangerous area piqued his curiosity, suggesting that the other hunters had perhaps sensed the imminent danger and scattered, leaving him to face the jungle's threats alone. And his suspicions were confirmed when a monster launched an attack from behind. But Su-yang was fast in his feet, having that ultra instinct kicking in. He even got that drip-dodging technique like Goku, where he got his hands down as if none of this is his business to begin with. But as he faced the creature head-on, he recognized it as a target from his quest, which he didn't expect to appear so soon. Since dealing with this kind of monster is really tricky if one relies on oneself alone without using trading prop and equipments, and as expected, the monster was fierce and fast, closing the distance instantly. Unfortunately for it, Su-yang has tricks of his own, taking out his long-ass flaming sword and sliced that motherfucker up like butter, and quickly cooked it right after, as its buff ability was on effect. This was such an unnecessary overkill, but Su-yang just wanted to use this sword at full power as fast as possible, since he had used a great amount of money in order for him to use it, all because this weapon doesn't have a gem slot to begin with. At first he thought he could use it right away since he got the gem which ignore level requirements, but without a slot, it was useless. So he has to use a high-level drilling stone to carve in one, but luck wasn't on his side when he was doing this, as it kept on failing again and again, which drained his wealth from 100 million to 60 million. Nonetheless, getting to use this weapon is lucky enough, so he just decided to look at the brighter side of things. And he still has the long bow that was owned by Zhao Ming. If he is able to sell this, then he will gain the money that he lost. And maybe Zhao Ming himself would buy this back, which is very funny if he thinks about it, but his financial concerns must be put aside for the moment, as Su-yang found himself under attack from monsters once again. Fortunately, he didn't need to flee thanks to a silver-level scroll in his possession. This scroll activated a charging barrier around him, capable of absorbing up to 50,000 points of damage, effectively shielding him from the onslaught. And the low-level monsters have low IQ, so they keep on continuing to attack the barrier non-stop, unwittingly positioning themselves exactly where Su-yang had intended. With this, Su-yang unleashed a devastating swing of his sword, emitting a fiery whirlwind that swept through the monsters. This powerful attack allowed him to eliminate 15 wolves in a single stroke. However, his quest required him to vanquish 100 wolves, and he realized that hunting them down individually would prove to be a troublesome and time-consuming task. To streamline this process, Su-yang pulled a monster attraction stone from his inventory. This unique item, usually dropped by low-level bosses, had the ability to lure both ordinary and elite monsters within a considerable radius directly to him. Recognizing the tactical advantage this presented, Su-yang activated the stone by tossing it into the sky, where it shattered and unleashed its magic. And almost immediately, the gem's power was evident as wolves swarmed from all directions, surrounding Su-yang, leaving Su-yang with nowhere to run. But retreat was never an option he considered. He was determined to fulfill his quest objectives in a decisive manner. To achieve this, he consumed an intermediate spirit potion, boosting his spirit points significantly, and unfurled a special baptism of fire skill scroll. This scroll allowed him to unleash a devastating area of effect fire attack, enveloping him in a pillar of fire that incinerated any monster daring to approach. This maneuver allowed him to meet the requirement of slaying 100 wolves. But it seems like the attraction stone proved to very effective, as he had attracted all the monsters in the forest. But he is not worried for one bit, as he had numerous amounts of scrolls at his disposal, so he can easily respond in kind against this large number of monsters. Meanwhile, in a remote part of the Cold Moon Jungle, a puzzled group of hunters roamed, perplexed by the eerie silence that had replaced the usual cacophony of monstrous growls. Accustomed to fending off aggressive creatures at every turn, their 2-kilometer journey without a single monster encounter raised alarms. The mystery deepened when one hunter recalled seeing a monster that, instead of attacking, fled in the opposite direction. An unheard-of behavior for the typically hostile inhabitants of the forest. Piecing together this odd behavior, the group's most seasoned hunter deduced that a monster attraction stone must be at play, drawing all the monsters to a single point and away from them. And this is such a selfish tactic, as this just wasted the opportunity of other hunters. With this, the group was determined to confront this shameless son of a bitch that wants to get all the rewards for himself, and teach him a lesson that he won't ever forget. But they may have to postpone that thought, as a sudden immense power emerged from where they were headed. The attack was so strong that it had reached the skies above, and the shockwave of it can't be ignored either, as the trio had felt it even from a distance, which made them curse out loud, as this level of magic fluctuation was likely from a third-level magician. So it's safe to say that confrontation was no longer an option. With this, they decided to quit now, and just do something else, as they can just complete their task next time. Meanwhile, back in the desolate aftermath where Su Yang stood, the scene was markedly different from moments ago. The vast number of monsters that had swarmed him were now nowhere in sight. Not a single corpse remained, and the landscape around him was scorched, devoid of vegetation, extending for miles in every direction. This level of destruction marked the completion of 2/3 of his ambitious 5-star job transfer task, leaving only the formidable boss as the final hurdle. A sense of anticipation lit up Su Yang's face. Despite having to utilize several scrolls to get to this point, the task had proven less challenging than he'd initially thought. Based on the nun's reaction back at the temple, now, with only the boss battle ahead, he wondered if this would be the challenge he had been seeking all along, and he eagerly made his way towards its lair. The destination was the Cold Moon Cave, known to be the dwelling of the fearsome Blue Wolf King, a challenge typically recommended for a team of 3 or more hunters, all over level 20. With this, just a few blocks away, a group of 3 can be seen peeking through a corner. They are above level 20, and a well-rounded team at that. Among the trio was Zhang the Mage, Li Sen the Tank, and Zhao the Archer. Each plays a crucial role in their planned confrontation with the boss, and Li Sen was particularly confident since their brother Zhang had bought him a primary strength concoction which allows him to survive for a longer period of time. But Zhao the Archer, on the other hand, was skeptical about all of this, since he had just changed his profession recently, and haven't tried his new skill yet, so he doesn't even know if they are strong or not. But Zhang couldn't have that, especially when he had prepared this much, and he was more than motivated than the other two, because the Wolf King had a 100% chance to drop its crystal core, a prize that could forge a silver-level staff, which is enough for him to use until he reached level 40. And so he tries his best to make Zhao confident about himself, set aside his apprehensions and focus on the potential rewards their victory could bring. But before he could even finish his speech, Zhao signaled him to stop as he noticed an unexpected figure approaching the cave. With this, all their eyes focus on the mysterious figure, and it was actually Su Yang confidently walking towards the boss lair, quickly alarming the group as they feared he might claim their target first. But upon closer inspection, they realized that this guy is quite young and was notably lacking any form of armor, suggesting he might be inexperienced or lost. And the tank guy asked if they should inform the kid about it, but the selfish Zhang quickly dismissed this idea with a scornful smack, believing his suggestion was stupid. As he thinks differently, he saw this as an opportunity to use the newbie as a bait for free, and while they wait for him to absorb the first wave of the boss skills, which they assume he couldn't even survive, they can go up and reap the benefits. With this, Li San couldn't help but admire Zhang's cunningness. Unfortunately for them, it didn't go as they had planned, as the ground beneath them began to tremble. This unforeseen quake was the result of Su Yang's actions. His eradication of a significant number of wolves in the Cold Moon jungle had incited the rage of the Wolf King. Infuriated by the loss of its pack, the Wolf King's power surged by 30%. But as an onlooker, the trio remained clueless, unable to comprehend why the boss was enraged by the arrival of the newbie. With this, Zhang assumed that the newcomer had messed up their whole plan, and he wasn't about to let that slide, especially when there were spoils to be claimed. So, he pops out of hiding, trying to rally his crew to move now before the boss dips out on them because of this mess. And he was convinced that the kid would get folded easily, so they have to get their ass up immediately. But before he could even get close, an intense gust of wind suddenly blew on his face, pulling his hood back and forcing his gaze forward. And he couldn't believe what he is witnessing right now. Even his crew wore exactly the same expression as him. Turns out, the newbie they thought was going to get wrecked flipped the script entirely, as he took down the boss with one clean hit. Light work, no reaction type of shit. It wasn't even a fight. Now they realized not to judge a book by its cover, as the kid is one hell of a monster himself. Meanwhile, Su Yang remained stoic as it proved that the 5-star quest he was made to believe was hard. was nothing but child's play.